Welcome back to the Late Night Story broadcast tonight. We invite you to meet again. You have many good works in the capital, such as Ghost on the Bridge, The Evil Child, The Soul in the Village of Keho, The Evil Village, The Moon and Flowers Pay for Life, The Haunted Villa. All are very good short stories. If you haven't heard them, please listen to them again. Today, he returns with a collection of short stories that takes us to a remote village in the mountains and into a ghost village. Please listen. Fong is 23 years old and is the director of a branch of his family's company. Recently, Fong and his friends are planning a backpacking trip. Honestly, since they were young, they have been too familiar with high-end resorts, year-round hotels, and having someone pick them up and drop them off wherever they go, and it has gotten boring. So this time they want to try something new. Fong's group of friends has a total of 4 people. Except for Fong, there are Hao, Nia, Trong. All of them are rich kids who have been friends with each other since the days of stripping naked in the rain. Growing up, because of the same interests, they became as close as real brothers. Wherever they went or whatever they did, they would go together without leaving anyone out. This time, Hao and Trong also brought their girlfriends along. After making a plan, they decided to go to the Northwest. They didn't need a tour guide. The whole group played big. After taking a flight from Saigon to Hanoi, they rented a motorbike and went by themselves. Fong drove Nia, while Trong and Hao drove his girlfriend. The 4 of them were quite brave, not knowing the way, but just following the map. Then one of them dared to point, the other dared to follow. Just like that, they arrive at the place they wanted to go. The first stop that Fong and his group chose was Mook and Che. To tell the truth, the young masters and young ladies have traveled to many places in the world, but not many beautiful places in their country. The first time they set foot in the Northwest, they were amazed by the majesty of this place. The winding mountain passes looked like a strip of silk winding around the mountains. The terraced fields were covered with ripe rice and white flowers, covering the mountains and forests. The fragrant scent of rice and the tiny white flowers flying in the wind across the sky and earth, like snowflakes carrying a gentle floral scent, softening everyone's soul. No one had ever thought that the Northwest this season would be so breathtakingly beautiful, to the point that even those of us who had traveled all over the world wanted to stop and think about this place. The whole group was fascinated by the beauty of this place. The further we went, the deeper we went into the villages. The Northwest is home to many ethnic groups. There are the Hmong, the Dao, and the Miao. With their own unique cultural features, they create a strong attraction for tourists from far away. This journey is considered a new experience. Fong decided to film the entire trip, edit it after returning, and post it on social media as a souvenir. Nia was sitting in the back, so he was in charge of recording. The handheld camera was small but had very high definition, and Fong deliberately drove slowly, so he didn't miss anything of the beautiful scenery on both sides of the road. Wow, that's really beautiful. Hey, let's stop and take a picture. The whole group rushed forward, especially the 2 girls. They were used to living in the bustling city, full of dust and high-rise buildings. Now coming to a mountainous place like this, it was both strange and exciting and full of anticipation. After taking pictures, the whole group set off. Before that, they had booked a hotel room at an ice flower resort. This is a newly opened area with a village style imbued with the essence of the mountains and forests. The group planned to stay here for only one night, and the next day they would continue to explore the local culture, finding a place to sleep wherever they went. When the group was walking a short distance, they accidentally saw a young ethnic man around 17 or 18 years old sitting on the side of the road. His face was pale, holding his right arm that was bleeding profusely. The group quickly stopped the car. Fong stepped forward and asked, "Little brother, what's wrong? Do you need any help?" The young man's face was pale, and from the way Fong and the others were dressed, he knew they were definitely tourists. Although tourism in this area had developed rapidly in recent years, the locals could also communicate clearly. However, not every village does tourism. Not every ethnic group likes to communicate with kin people, especially visitors from far away like this. The young man stood up and walked forward, not intending to talk or answer Fong. Fong's friends were surprised to see that. The camera in Nia's hand was still turned towards the young man. Then he looked at Fong and asked, "Is it possible that he doesn't understand what we're saying?" Not all ethnic people can speak Kin. Fong watched the back of the ethnic young man walking further and further away. Trung and Hao also looked at him and then turned to say to the group, "Looking at his attitude just now, it's not that he doesn't understand, but that he doesn't want to talk to us." Yeah. Is it bad that Fong is too open-minded? Just met him and said he was his younger brother. Who knows, he might be older than him. What do you think? Looking at the kid, he looks like he's only 17 or 18 years old. Besides, I started a conversation politely. I never opened up. If you guys are good, then come up and talk. Knowing that the man did not want to communicate with them, the group was considering whether to follow or not. Because the young man looked seriously injured, blood was still flowing from his hands onto the road, and wherever he passed, he left blood stains that were horrifying to see. After thinking for a while, they still decided to drive in the direction of the small road that the young man had just entered. They could not just watch him die without doing anything. Looking at his appearance, if they left him alone, on a road with few people passing by like this, he would die of blood loss. They had not walked for long when they saw the young man sitting under a large tree, his face pale, looking no different from a corpse, which was a bit startling. This time Fong did not approach. Instead, the group let Vi come forward to ask. After all, girls are easier to talk to. Vi is Hao's girlfriend, currently a second-year student at the University of Medicine and Pharmacy. She could see that the wound was really serious. "I study medicine. If you don't mind, I can help you treat it. This wound, if he doesn't stop the bleeding soon, he will die." He doesn't know if hearing the word death scared him or not. He opened his eyes and stared at Vi. Then, without saying anything, he bit the moon and held out his injured arm towards her. Just then, Hoa, Trung's girlfriend, stood not far away, holding a first aid kit and walked over. The group had researched thoroughly. In case of any unfortunate incidents on the road, they had prepared a first aid kit. Since they studied medicine, they knew what was necessary. Common cold medicine, fever reducer, wind oil, bandages, antiseptics, in short, everything was there. Although they were helping people in distress, Fong and his friends were not fools. They still took precautions. The three people in charge of driving were already sitting on the saddle. Tri and Fong, who had learned martial arts since he was young, followed the two girls. Because the wound was bleeding quite a lot, the sleeves of his shirt were long and tight and soaked in blood because they had to be cut with scissors. A deep cut was exposed. The two sides of the flesh were wide open, almost revealing the white bones inside, making people feel scared when they saw it. They couldn't understand how a boy could endure such an injury without even making a sound. Not sure if it was an illusion or not, but Vi saw some muscles on both sides of the wound as if they were wriggling. After a while, they disappeared. He thought it was probably a phenomenon of the muscles not paying attention. Because he was well trained, he carefully put on medical gloves before handling it. With Hoa's help, it took nearly 20 minutes to temporarily stop the bleeding and bandage it. His wound needed to be stitched up at the hospital, otherwise it could easily become infected and dangerous. Because I'm still speaking gently, but if this wound really became infected, festered, and became necrotic, he might have to amputate his arm. Thanks. But I'm fine. There's medicine in the village. Just apply it for a few days and it'll be cold. The young man finally opened his mouth to speak. Although it had a slight mountain accent, it was still clear. What's your name? Where do you live? Fong also asked immediately. He originally wanted to ask the boy why he was so badly injured. But Fong thought about it and didn't ask after all. They were just strangers, and the boy was very cautious. Even if he asked, the person might not want to talk. My name is Mim. My house is in Holang Village, about an hour away. Mim told the group that while cutting down the tree, because he didn't hold the machete tightly, it accidentally bounced back, which is why he got this cut on his hand. If you want to help someone, help them to the end. Fong, and his friend decided to take Muk Siam back to the village. At first, Kanfai wanted to take Muk Lim to the medical station because the wound was quite deep and needed to be treated. However, the boy refused, saying that he had to return to the village before dark, and insisted that the ethnic people had their own remedies. A wound like this was nothing serious, and after returning, applying medicine for a few days, it would heal right away. Fong's motorbike was the biggest, so only Fong could carry the pillion. The group immediately set off following the instructions of the local boy. Ban H Lang was a village deep in the mountains, not yet exploited for tourism. Therefore, the roads were different from those of the tourist villages. It was still quite difficult. There were many bumpy dirt roads, almost as if the car could not go any further. When we got back to the village, it was already past 5 p.m., and the sky was starting to get dark. Because the deep mountains were surrounded by trees, the whole village was covered in a hazy fog at night. Every house here had stone walls piled up to their chests. Inside were dilapidated wooden houses, with only dim light coming from inside. It was unclear whether they were electric or oil lamps, but they seemed to be swaying, making the atmosphere in the village strangely quiet. Fong's group rode their motorbikes into the area, creating a relatively loud noise. From inside the houses, many heads poked out to watch their vehicle pass by. Mu Si Lim's house at the end of the village was a wooden house that looked larger and newer than the other houses here. And when they arrived, they realized that the boy was actually the son of the village chief. When Mrs. May saw her son being returned by a stranger, she quickly ran out of the house. She hugged her son and cried, speaking a series of ethnic languages that no one in Fong's group understood. To thank Fong's group for helping his son, Mr. Kban invited them to stay in the village for a few days. I heard from CIM that you guys are tourists, so if you don't mind, stay here for a few days. Although our village doesn't develop tourism, the scenery is still very beautiful. Thank you. I'm not bothering you too much, but I'm not bothering you enough. Our family can't thank you enough. It was already dark. Siam led them to a house about 300 meters away from the previous one. It was pitch black inside, as if no one was there, but the front yard was clean, unlike an abandoned house. CIM went inside to the electrical switchboard. Although the light was a bit yellow, not the kind of direct light like in the city, it was enough to light up the whole house. This was my family's old house. After building a new house, they won't be staying here anymore. But my mother cleans it every day. You guys can stay here temporarily. If you have anything to say, just tell me. Mu Cielo Lim is much more cheerful and lively now. Compared to when they first met, it's like two completely different people. This is an old wooden house. Compared to the new house they just arrived at, it's a bit small. There was a large tree in the yard, and it was dark so they couldn't see what it was. But it looked dead. There were only bare branches and no leaves. There was a well at the base. Around the house were large jars that looked like rainwater jars. The walls were made of a mixture of straw and clay. The floor was still dirt. The house had 2 rooms, a kitchen that burned firewood, and a bedroom with 2 long strips of wooden planks placed opposite each other, just enough room for 6 people. Just as he said, although the house was small, it was very clean. This time the group decided to go backpacking, and they weren't picky. Although they were all rich kids, they were raised with a silver spoon in their mouths, but they were also educated properly by their families, not the kind of rich kids who relied on their money to act recklessly or act foolishly, otherwise they wouldn't have been willing to help CIM. A dirty and filthy ethnic boy sat on the side of the road. The group did not complain about the situation and decided to stay for a few days to see what would happen. The first night in the village, the group thought it would be a place where they could not sleep. But unexpectedly, as soon as they lay down, everyone fell asleep and did not know what was going on. It wasn't until the sun rose high in the sky, when C brought them breakfast, that everyone got up. Did you guys sleep well last night? I ate some cassava with freshly squeezed goat milk from my house. It was guaranteed to be clean and delicious. It was the first time everyone had eaten rustic food, plus a cup of warm goat milk in the early morning on a cold bus. Everyone thought this trip was worth enjoying. Fong saw C.A. Lim's face was more rosy than yesterday, so he asked casually, "How is your wound?" "Yes, very good, it's almost dry." Because he was eating sweet potatoes, he was surprised to hear that, and quickly put the sweet potatoes down. "Almost dry? How could it be so fast? Let me take a look. Just change the bandage while you're at it." Selim did not refuse, but let Vi sit in the middle of the yard to change his bandage. The whole group also gathered around curiously to watch. On the wound was a thick, mushy medicine, which looked like a bandage but had an extremely unpleasant fishy smell, causing the whole group to almost vomit the breakfast they had just had. What was this? It smelled so bad. "This is a family medicine of our people. It's a bit disgusting, but it's very effective in treating wounds." Convi suppressed her nausea, put on gloves, and brushed the gooey stuff away. When they saw the mouth of the wound, everyone's eyes widened. "Oh my God, kid, is this medicine of ours really a miracle drug?" Fong couldn't help but exclaim. Yesterday, there was clearly a deep wound that exposed the white bone. But after only one night, the wound had closed up and was starting to scab over and dry up. In all their years of life, from childhood to adulthood, even though they had been exposed to the most advanced medical services, none of them had ever seen such a miraculous medicine. Especially Convi, who was studying medicine, could not hold back her exclamation. "What kind of medicine is this? Do we sell it? Do you want to buy it?" "Oh, this is a family medicine. We don't sell it. And even if we did, foreigners wouldn't be able to use it." C.A. Lim's face suddenly darkened, and her smile disappeared. Seeing the boys' attitude, although they felt a bit regretful, they couldn't force him to buy or sell, so they didn't mention this matter anymore. Today, the group decided to take a walk around the village. Knowing that they wanted to go sightseeing, Selim pointed to a mountain not far away. "Don't go there, okay?" The road there was rough, and dangerous wild animals occasionally appeared. We villagers also did not dare to go in anymore. "Oh, we know, thank you for listening." After Siam left, the gang changed clothes, took their cameras, and started exploring the surroundings. Last night when they arrived, it was already dark, so they could not see clearly. Now they saw that this village was truly both beautiful and wild, as if they were lost in another world. The houses here were mostly built of earth, and in front of each house there was a well and a big tree. From the outside, they looked exactly like the house the group had stayed in. Perhaps it was the rainy season, so the yard of each house was full of corn drying. Some were tied up and hung up like firecrackers. The children here seemed to be afraid of strangers. Even when they were playing in the yard, when they saw the group of people passing by, they would run inside to guess why they were curiously sticking their heads out to look. The adults saw them holding cameras and phones and filming back and forth. Everyone looked at them with strange eyes and whispered to each other in a language they didn't understand. This was the first time that people born in the city like them saw the daily life of ethnic minorities. Although he knew that the people here would be different from the kin people in terms of customs and lifestyle. However, for some reason, Fong still had the feeling that this village was a bit strange. Fong couldn't say exactly what was strange. The group went into the mountain where the white flowers were blooming all over the top of the mountain, along with a clear stream flowing freely, allowing them to take pictures. The two girls in particular kept posing and taking pictures until their phone batteries ran out. By noon, the whole group was exhausted. While waiting for the two girls to go to the bathroom, Fong and three others sat by the stream to rest when suddenly they heard a loud scream. It was Vi and Hoa's voices. The whole group immediately stood up and ran in that direction. When they arrived, they saw Vi lying on the ground, her face pale and her whole body trembling. What happened to Vi? Hao quickly helped his girlfriend up and asked her with concern. Meanwhile, Trung and everyone else looked everywhere, but couldn't find Hoa. Where is Hoa? Where is she? Trung questioned loudly, making Vi startled and unable to hold back her tears, pointing forward. There was something that dragged Hoa away. I couldn't pull her back. Because she told me that when she and Hoa went to the toilet together after finishing, They intended to go back, but Hoa saw something in the bushes, so she went to see. When the two of them just got close, suddenly from there, something like a human's ear shot out. It grabbed Hoa's leg and dragged her away into the forest. No matter how hard Vi tried, she couldn't make peace. She screamed in panic. Then the group of wind rushed over together. While Hao was behind and Vi, Fong, and the other two moved forward, following the traces of being dragged on the ground to find peace. The further they went, the more Trung and their hearts felt like they were being squeezed. On the ground, the grass and trees were trampled and fell. There were also long blood stains and clothes torn by trees. They could imagine how Hoa struggled desperately. Everyone's steps were shaking. They walked further and further without realizing that they had entered the area that the mountain had warned them not to approach. Finally, the blood trail stopped in front of a cave. Despite Fong and Nia's dissuasion, Trung insisted on going in. If they wanted to go, they would go together. They were brothers who grew up together, and they couldn't stand by and watch their brothers go into danger. Each of them looked around and picked up a tree branch to use as a weapon, then turned on their phone flashlights and groped their way in. The dark cave was filled with a foul smell. That made their stomachs churn. When they went deep inside about 100 meters, they finally saw Hoa lying unconscious on the ground. Trung quickly ran over. "Hoa, wake up. What's wrong with you? Don't scare me." "Here, Hoa. Take her outside." Fong spoke up. Only then did the whole group come to their senses. Trung quickly picked Hoa up and ran outside. No one noticed that something was moving above their heads. In the darkness, its two bloodshot eyes stared at the crowd, as if looking at delicious prey. Coming out of the cave, Vi hurriedly checked Hoa's body. Strangely, there was not a single wound on her body, even though she had been dragged between her horns for a long distance, and no matter how they took turns calling her, Hoa did not wake up. Knowing that they could not stay here for long, the group followed the path down to the board with the gate in their backs. C.A. Lim and Mr. Caban were driving the buffalo to the ground when they saw a group of young men running from the mountains. Seeing the direction they ran from, Mr. C.A. Ban's face darkened, and he turned to ask C.A. Lim, "Didn't I tell you to tell them not to go up the mountain?" C.I.M. was also pale and didn't understand what was going on. He had clearly told them. Why didn't they listen? Fong saw Ko Lim and shouted loudly for help. Seeing someone with a gate on his back, Mr. Ko Bang's face changed color. He threw away the gate and ran over with his son. He took Si Lim, an ethnic minority, who was young but very strong. He helped Hoa onto Trung's back and ran back to the village. Only Mr. Ko Bang was able to catch up. Fong and his friends were too exhausted to keep up. When they arrived at Mr. Ko Bang's house, they saw Hoa lying on the bed, being given some kind of black liquid by Mrs. May. Trung immediately stopped her. "Ma'am, don't let her drink anything. We'll take her away right now." Fong, Nia, and Hao had already gone to get the sword cart. They didn't know what Hoa's condition was, but they had to take her to the medical station as soon as possible. Because the hospital was quite far away, they could only go to a nearby place first. At least if it was really urgent, they would have to transfer her to a higher place. It was still safer than them just carrying Hoa to town like that. In this situation, Trung carried Hoa out to the yard so that Hoa could sit on the motorbike. Because they were sitting behind to support Hoa, the group quickly opened the roof but were blocked by Mr. Ko Bang and his wife. "You guys can't take the girl away. You can't leave the village. Get out of the way, or I'll hit you. Don't blame me." Trung just wanted to quickly take his girlfriend to the hospital. If he was blocked, he would go crazy, not caring about anything else, twisting his arm as if he really wanted to hit anyone in his way. Mr. C.A. Ban was not angry. He just sighed helplessly and dodged to the side. The whole convoy sped away. Only Vi didn't know what to think and turned back to look. If she didn't look, that was fine. As soon as she looked, her scalp suddenly went numb. It was clearly daytime, but Vi saw a dark mass with red eyes rushing towards them from Mr. Ko Bang's house, thinking it was the thing that dragged Hoa away. Vi's whole body shook as she hugged Hoa tightly, urgently saying to Trung, Hey, run, run fast, hurry up. Phi didn't dare say that something was chasing them. Hearing that, Trung thought Hoa's situation was getting worse, so he pushed the gas all the way to make the road very difficult to travel. The group had only left the village for a while when Fong, who was running behind them, noticed something unusual. The road ahead was gradually covered in fog. It was now 12 noon, the sun was high in the sky. There shouldn't be any fog. Fong slowed down, turned his head halfway, and said to the person sitting behind him, "Check carefully to see if this is a place we've passed before. There is only this road to the village. If you go straight, you can get out." The whole group had been following closely behind Trung's car. They were still driving in the same direction. But for some reason, Fong had the feeling that they had already passed this section. "What do you mean? Do you see that persimmon tree? The whole road to the village had only that tree. But I remember I passed it just now." Nia, of course, remembers that persimmon tree, because the whole tree was very big, bare of leaves, only ripe fruit left. "I saw it right away when I entered the village. It's just that I was so busy watching Trung's car in front that I didn't pay attention to the road." "Are you sure?" "I don't know. Just keep going. You pay attention to your surroundings." The group continued running. About 15 minutes later, both Fong and Nia froze when they discovered that they had actually run back to the persimmon tree they had seen. Not only did the two of them discover this, but Vi, who was sitting in the back of the car and was constantly on guard against her surroundings, also noticed. She immediately told Trung about this. Hao saw Trung's car stop and stopped too. The whole group gathered not far from the persimmon tree. "What's going on? Maybe we can't go anywhere. It won't let us leave here." Vi's whole body shook. Her speech was also slurred. Hearing that, the whole group looked at her, especially Trung. At this moment, he couldn't keep calm and grabbed Vi's wrist, his eyes bloodshot. "What do you mean? What do you know? Tell me clearly." "Calm down. Let her talk slowly. What can you solve by being like this? Fuck, let your girlfriend be tested to see if you can calm down or not." Trung was still holding Hoa tightly in the car. Hoa's whole body was cold now. Even though she was wearing 2 fur coats, her arms and legs were still like ice. If Hoa was still breathing steadily, everyone would have thought she was a corpse. How could Trung not be worried? "Okay, you guys stop arguing. Let her talk. Now tell me everything you know." Fong stood up to stop his 2 friends and took a deep breath, telling them about what he saw at Mr. Koban's house. After hearing that, no one dared to believe it. "Are you serious? You're not seeing things, are you? You're sure?" In contrast to Hao and Nia's doubts, Fong and Trung immediately believed it. "Do you remember what Mr. Ban said? He said we couldn't leave the village. This must be a ghost story." The whole group couldn't help but feel a chill down their spines. Trung asked worriedly, "So what should we do now?" "What should we do? Let's go back there and find a way to wake Hoa up, and then we'll figure it out." After reaching an agreement, the whole group decided to go back to Mr. Koban's house. It was true that something was preventing them from leaving this village, because the whole drive back was less than 10 minutes. As soon as they entered the yard, they saw Mr. Koban waiting on the porch. He did not seem surprised to see them return. "What the hell did you guys do? Why can't we leave this place?" Fong did not ask in a negative way, but asked directly, his eyes looking at Mr. Koban coldly. He was not afraid of the aggressive spirit of the young men. You take the girl inside first. I told CIM to bring the medicine. Wait until she wakes up and then talk." "I understand what he means. He has medicine to help Hoa wake up." The group looked at each other and followed suit. Right now, Hoa's condition was the most important. They took her back to the family's outhouse where they had been staying before. About 15 minutes later, Mr. Kobang and Colleen brought a cup of black liquid, not knowing what kind of medicine it was. Having no other choice, they let Hoa drink it. Mr. Kobang looked at Trung feeding Hoa medicine and sighed softly. It would be evening before the baby woke up. What was going on? Please explain. Mr. C.A. Bang told Siam to go home first, while he stayed to talk to the people here. You can't blame us for this. Kolim told you not to go to that mountain, but you went anyway. That is the sacred mountain of the village. Unless you are a member of the clan, you cannot set foot there. This girl is marked by the mountain god. Unless you leave someone here, you can't leave without her. In other words, if they wanted to leave this hellish village, they would have to give up their peace as a sacrifice to the mountain god. What the hell did you say? Say it again for me to hear. Trung was furious and wanted to rush forward and grab Mr. Ko Bang by the neck, but was quickly held back by Hao and Nia. Hey, calm down. Nia and Hao tried to calm Trung down. Mr. Ko Bang didn't mind. After speaking, he stood up and left. There were only 6 of them left in the house. Everyone was almost crazy, scratching their heads. The group of friends, in order to prepare for the worst, decided to put cameras in the house, filming 24/7, and at the same time calling their families for help. Coming from wealthy families, they still knew a little bit about things that ordinary people did not have the opportunity to come into contact with. For example, big businessmen always believe in feng shui or sorcerers. In the entertainment industry, there are many people who raise Kanthong, just hoping to become famous and then use magic and all that. If what Convi said is true, then Mr. Ko Bang's house is definitely raising something. Or maybe the whole village is raising that thing, and it is the thing that is harming the business. These things might not be something ordinary people like them could fight against, but they couldn't just sit there and wait to die. Tomorrow, there would still be a signal here so they could call for help. Fong told his father everything. On the other end, Mr. Kwan's whole body jerked. He knew that once he encountered those evil things, it wouldn't be as simple as his son had said. Now you guys stay there, don't go anywhere, don't come into contact with or eat anything that people give you. I'll invite the 2 masters to come as soon as possible. Remember, don't separate. Fong shared his location with his father, and then repeated what Mr. Kwan had told him. The 2 of them also brought some bread, dry food, and a few bottles of water to eat on the road, which should last them 2 or 3 days. At that time, hopefully Mr. Kwan can bring the 2nd master in time. On this side, after Mr. Kwan finished the phone call, he immediately dropped all his work and hurriedly went to find the 2nd master. The 2nd master was over 50 years old this year and was a famous shaman among the rich. Those who had witnessed his abilities all affirmed his abilities. Not only could he see through a person's past and future, he also had the ability to distinguish between ghosts and demons, and he also knew how to arrange magic formations to help people change their fate. But to invite Master Hai Su is not an easy task, because Master Hai Su can see through everything. Therefore, those who have lived a sinful life because of doing evil and immoral things and are punished by karma, even if they die in front of Master Hai Su, Master Hai Su will never step in to save them. Master Hai Su once said, in life, it is easy to escape debts to people, but it is hard to avoid debts to ghosts. Master Hai Su will never interfere with those karmic debts. This time Mr. Kwan came to the house to ask to see the teacher. He was a bit worried, because he did not know if the children had done anything to cause them to be involved in the karma of those things. Although he knew his son well, he was not sure about the other children. While Mr. Kwan went to ask for help, in Kolang Fong village, his friends were anxious as fire, unable to sit still. The thing is, after waking up, Hoa Nu turned into a different person. Her eyes were blank and blank. She just sat in front of the porch looking towards the Forbidden Mountain, muttering something in her mouth, like the dialect of the people in this village. No one dared to approach Hoa, including Trung, because they didn't know what was hidden in her body. Not knowing whether it was their illusion or not, since Hoa woke up and sat on the porch, Fong and the others felt that there seemed to be more people from the village walking back and forth in front of the house. Many people even had complicated expressions on their faces. Some smiled, some looked pitying, some showed a reverent expression, secretly bowing toward Hoa. Although Mr. Kwan had told them not to split up or wander around, they still wanted to understand the situation a little. They decided to call it a day and leave Vi and Trung at home to keep watch. Fong, Nia, and Hao would go around a village to see what was going on. It wasn't until dusk that Fong and the other two dragged their tired bodies back. As soon as they saw them, Trung Vi hurriedly asked, "How is it? Did you find any clues?" "We couldn't find anything. When those people saw us, they all ran into their houses and closed the doors. They didn't even see the child anymore." Nia sat down on the ground, leaning against the wall. He was getting more and more annoyed as he spoke. This map was getting weirder and weirder. It's not like there were no clues. Didn't you guys notice? Today, there was a piece of paper stuck in front of every house's door like that. Fong took out his phone and showed the group 2 photos. One was taken this morning when the group was on their way to the mountain to play. The other was the one Fong had just taken while looking around. The golden talisman was stuck on the upper right corner of the door in a slightly hidden position, so if you didn't look closely, you wouldn't be able to see it. It's worth mentioning that it wasn't just one house. All the houses on this list had talismans, including Mr. Kobang's house. Speaking of which, since Hoa woke up, Mr. Kobang's family had not seen anyone come here, including Siam. The group thought that they would bring them food. But that was not the case. While the group was still thinking about the talismans, strange sounds came from the kitchen next door, like the growls of a beast that made their scalps tingle. Fong took the lead, carrying the machete from the corner of the house, and went down to the kitchen. As soon as they entered, the whole group was frightened by the scene before their eyes until their faces turned pale. Hoa, who had been like a lifeless puppet tied to a pillar, was now struggling to get out. What was even more frightening was that it felt like something was crawling under Hoa's skin. Blue-purple veins appeared on Hoa's arms, legs, neck, and face, like blood vessels. But they wriggled and moved, looking even more like worms. Hoa's throat made a growling sound like a fake animal. Hoa at this moment did not look like a human at all. Trung saw that and wanted to run over, but was held back by the group. "Are you crazy? Get me out and see. Are you going to just watch the machine die?" Being held back, Trung screamed, his eyes red. Trung is 3 years older than Hoa. They grew up together since childhood. After confirming their relationship, their feelings became deeper. Ever since Hoa had an accident, Trung's mind was as tense as a bowstring. Now seeing this scene, he was like a mad beast struggling, even hitting Nia and Hao who were trying to stop him. "Are you crazy? Fuck. You even hit me." Nia was beaten painfully, also grabbed the middle neck and wanted to punch him, but then couldn't do it. Fong was also so angry that his lungs exploded, he shouted at his 3 friends, "We're all about to die, and now you still have the energy to fight?" While everyone was making noise, suddenly outside the yard came a rustling sound, like something was crawling on the ground, and there was also a rustling sound that made people roll their eyes. The sound sent a chill down their spines, and they immediately stopped their sloppy work. Before they could determine what the sound was, countless creatures began to crawl in from under the crack in the door. They looked like hairy worms, but their entire bodies were red as blood. They carried a fishy smell and a horrible stench like rotten meat that had been left for a long time and had become infested with worms. Everywhere they crawled, they left behind a black, gooey duck substance on the ground. It was exactly the same as the one they had seen on CIM's wound the day before. Even the stench was the same. The red worms seemed to have smelled the delicious meat and immediately swarmed into the house. "Run!" Fong shouted, and the group came back to their senses and started running. But in the small, cramped house, it was only a dozen steps away. The group didn't know where to go. They wanted to rush out the door, but the things from the yard had already rushed in. They crowded the glass door. "Get on the bed," Fong shouted loudly to his friends, grabbing the firewood that was still burning in the kitchen and waving it towards the things. Not knowing whether they were afraid of the fire or not, the swarm of things that were crawling quickly suddenly slowed down. So the others also grabbed a piece of still burning firewood, gradually retreated to the bedroom, and climbed onto the wooden plank that had been arranged into a bed. The 5 of them turned their backs to each other, holding the firewood in their hands and continuously waving it to the ground, their faces pale, their limbs trembling. Because they clenched their teeth and did not dare to cry, tears kept flowing, their voices choked. We will die here?" No one answered. They hoped that it wasn't the case, but now everyone felt hopeless. The fire on the logs died down, and the bloodworms seemed to realize that there was no more danger. They began to swarm in droves, crawling onto the bed, making excited, chirping sounds. The sound made their heads ache as if they were about to explode. Just when everyone thought they would die here and become food for the bloodworms, a loud bang was heard. The door was kicked open. Kolim and Mr. Ko-Bang rushed in, holding 2 torches in their hands. They had countless golden talismans stuck on them. "Follow me." CIM pulled Vi's hand and gave the torches to Fong and Hao. Mr. Ko-Bang also gave Nia a torch and urged, "Hurry up, Hoa, she's still in the kitchen." True was about to run down to the kitchen, wanting to take Hoa with her, but was pulled back by Mr. Ko-Bang. They wouldn't touch the girl. "Hurry up, these talismans won't last." Because Mr. Ko-Bang and his son had the shape of a talisman on them, those things seemed to be afraid and didn't dare to come near them. By the time they reached the yard, the whole group was so frightened by the sight that their legs went weak. They fell out of the large jars that they thought were used to hold rainwater. Countless red worms crawled out. Under the moonlight, their entire bodies looked even more ghostly, like man-eating insects, bathed in fresh blood. When the group arrived at Mr. Ko-Bang's house, they saw Mrs. May waiting at the door. As soon as they entered, she immediately slammed the door shut and took some kind of blue powder and scattered it all over the house, especially in the cracks of the doors. Mrs. May poured each of them a glass of water, but they kept shaking, only sighing helplessly. At this point, Mr. Ko-Bang did not intend to hide it anymore. "You guys might be able to escape tonight, but I'm not sure about tomorrow night. Something has already targeted you guys." "What is that thing?" "That thing that planted the mountain is not a mountain god like I said at first, but a demon. To be more precise, it is a monster that is even more terrifying than a demon." Mr. C.A. Ban began to tell them a story about the origin of this village from long ago. 200 years ago, the ancestors of the village were Miao people from a country bordering the country of Tam. The people of this tribe were best at witchcraft and raising ancient insects. At that time, there was a tradition in the tribe that whoever could raise an ancient mother would become the next holy woman of the tribe. During that war, the clan leader's daughter was highly awaited by the entire clan, but she failed to raise any goo worms. On the contrary, her maid Xiao Mian successfully raised a goo mother. The clan leader wanted his daughter to ascend to the position of saintess, so he secretly sent someone to kill Xiao Mian to steal the goo worms. They just didn't expect that Xiao Mian had already figured it out and pretended to be dead. When the clan leader's daughter received the blood from the neck bit her back, causing her to die on the spot. Xiao Mian took the mother and a few of her supporters and fled, and was relentlessly hunted down by the entire clan. After many years of hiding here and there, they finally arrived here. Relying on the goo, Qiumin married a local man and settled down here. Qiumin also relied on her own abilities to become a shaman respected by the villagers. The whole thing was nothing to talk about. Until her death, Qiumin had cast the goo on everyone in her village, including her descendants. To achieve their wish, they must stay here for generations, guarding their graves. The ancient bloodline is passed down from generation to generation. Because the ancient mother is in Mrs. Qiumin's body and is buried in a rock on the Forbidden Mountain. Therefore, the ancient bloodline on the villagers cannot be separated from its mother for too long. Therefore, the villagers seem to be bound by a vow. They could never leave this place for the rest of their lives. Every villager after death will be put into this jar with a talisman engraved on it and placed in the yard. It was like an urn with the ability to suppress the goo worms. The villagers did not dare to bury the corpses underground, because once buried, the goo worms would eat the flesh and multiply, crawling up the ground. At that time, the whole village was afraid that even the white bone fungus would be gone. If the goo worms had been cursed by the town's curse, then why did they crawl out tonight? And what happened to our village? Why did she become like this? Because they had made a deal with the devil. A man's voice came from the yard, startling Mr. Coban, who immediately stood up. Then, as if thinking of something, his whole body shook, and he hurriedly went to open the door. Fong and his friend also looked out. Uncle Quan's father said, "Uncle." When they saw that the person coming was their father, Fong and his friend's eyes turned red with joy. Mr. Quan saw his son and the children in striped clothes, with disheveled hair, and they looked so pale and haggard after only a few days of wearing them. He was heartbroken. "Go up and comfort them. It's okay. It's okay with Master Haisu here. Everything will be fine." Seeing the man wearing a black three-piece outfit, his silver hair tied high on top of his head, and his face, although aged by time, Mr. Kobang could not forget. He immediately knelt down and hugged Master Haisu's legs. "Master, please save us. Please, Master. I warned you before, don't teach and do business with the devil, but you don't seem to listen. We know we're wrong. Please, Master, please save us." After entering the house, everyone found out that more than 20 years ago, Master Haisu, when he was young, had accidentally passed by here. At that time, no one in the village could leave the village. After seeing all the causes and effects, the two masters helped them. However, the master was still young, and his cultivation was not enough, so he could only arrange a formation to suppress some of the ancient mother's power. Thanks to that, the people in the village were able to leave, but it was not for more than 3 days. Otherwise, if the mother's neck is separated from its mother, the desire for flesh and blood will arise. At that time, it will begin to devour the flesh and blood of the villagers until only white bones remain. Before leaving, the second master warned the whole village very carefully that this ancient mother is the incarnation of a demon. It is controlled by the spirit of that witch. Absolutely do not be foolish enough to make any transaction with it, otherwise the consequences will be unpredictable. However, as the years passed, seeing the lives of other villages getting better and better, only they had to endure the hardship of not being able to go out to trade, causing the spirit of the villagers to seem exhausted. At this moment, the spirit of that woman who had already merged with the ancient mother came to find her. She said that every year, if a female spirit was sacrificed to her, then during that year, everyone in the village could go out. As long as they returned before New Year's Eve, they would not be killed by the goo worms. This female spirit will be personally chosen by her. The chosen person will be dragged into a cave on the mountain. After the goo mother had attached herself to the female spirit and stayed in the female spirit's body for 3 days and 3 nights, the whole village would go into the mountain to set up an altar and throw the female spirit into the witch's tomb. They have been doing this for 5 years now. During that time, 5 girls have sacrificed their lives for the village. Even so, it is something they and their families are willing to do. Because more than anyone else, they know what it feels like to be imprisoned in the deep mountains for a lifetime, living a miserable life day after day. Even if they could only leave for a year, at least the children and young men in the village could step out into the light and see the outside world. It was just that they did not expect that this time the demon in the mountain would choose peace. A person from far away who had nothing to do with them. Not only that, it seemed like it had no intention of letting the others go. Otherwise, tonight, the young ghosts would not have been summoned out of the river by the mother ghost on Hoa's body to attack them. Actually, there is also a shaman in the village, the one who drew those talismans to chase away the ghosts for the people of the village to stick in front of their doors every night. But the talismans were only effective for 1 night, and that shaman was getting old and would not last much longer. I'm afraid that if there is no more talisman, one day everyone in the clan will be devoured by those goo worms and no one will be left. Goo worms can only be active at night. When the sky was just bright, the group of people following the 2 masters returned to the house where Hoa was staying. Hoa at this time had returned to the state of a lifeless puppet still tied to a pole. Last night, because of struggling, the ropes had torn the skin and flesh from her wrists and legs. When she gave Hoa her last words, I once again saw every bit of flesh moving, just like she had seen on CIM's wound that time. Don't touch her wound. The worms inside her were gnawing at her flesh and blood. Only by covering them with her slime would they stop eating. The wound will quickly cool down, Mr. C.A. Band said as he used a small knife to sweep some of the slimy duck substance that was still stuck on the door and apply it to Hoa's wound. The second master looked at Hoa and frowned slightly. 20 years ago, he could not fight that demon. For the past 20 years, he had painstakingly researched many ways to completely destroy the Ancient Mother. Once the Ancient Mother died, the demon in the mountain was just a small matter. However, that cruel thing was not so easy to exterminate. In the case after this time, the second master recently found a way. Originally planning to return to Kolang village, Mr. Quan came to find him. As soon as he heard the name of the second master, he knew something bad was going to happen. They hurriedly set off. Fortunately, they arrived just in time. To avoid disturbing the grass and snakes, the whole village, following the master's advice, prepared the ceremony as usual. The next day, not only Hoa but also the remaining 5 people in the group were bathed in cinnamon flower water by the villagers, dressed in beautiful meow brocade clothes, and had their hands full of silver jewelry. Then, each person was carried up the mountain by 4 young men from the village on a rattan chair. Except for the elderly and children who stayed at home, the entire village followed. A group of about 200 people. The sound of gongs and drums echoed throughout the mountains and forests. The women walked in front, each holding a bag filled with flower petals from the mountains and a bag filled with joss paper money. As they walked, they scattered them on the ground. Flower petals were scattered in front, joss paper money was scattered behind, creating an extremely strange scene. The group of people entered the mountain and stopped in front of a very large stone tomb. From the outside, it looked exactly like a clay pot, with a large hole on the lid. The person being sacrificed would climb up the small pot and throw himself into the pot. What happened next? No one knew, and no one wanted to know. Because after the ceremony was over, the whole clan left, leaving only the sacrificed person behind. As usual, Mr. C.A. Bang brought the person to the stone tomb. Then the whole clan lit incense sticks and placed them around the tomb to invite the thing inside out. When the incense sticks burned fiercely, it meant that it felt satisfied with the sacrifice, and they could leave. This time, man seemed more fierce than usual. It showed that the demon was extremely pleased when the villagers offered him all the people he had chosen. The villagers flocked down the mountain. C.A. Lim hesitated for a long time, but his father pulled his hand several times. I'll go. But if you stay here, you'll only get in the way. He didn't dare say too much, afraid that the demon might hear and ruin all of the teacher's efforts. This was also the last hope of the clan. Siam knew he couldn't help, so he could only turn around and leave. Before leaving, he took a look at Vi. Siam liked Vi very much. He saw her as his older sister. If it weren't for the sake of the entire clan, he wouldn't want to put them in danger. These past few days, Kolim didn't dare to get close to them because he was ashamed. He felt like an ungrateful person. If they hadn't been so kind as to take him back to the village, if he hadn't kept them, they wouldn't have been caught by that thing. Just as the villagers had just come down the mountain, the wind suddenly blew and dark clouds rolled in, covering the sky, making people extremely scared. Hurry up, go home and close the door tightly. Mr. Kobang shouted loudly. The people in the village started to run down the mountain crazily. No one dared to stop or look back. Right at this moment, on the mountain, from inside the stone tomb, a dry hand was sticking out from the hole and gradually crawling out of the tomb. Fong and his friends could not help but scream in horror when they saw clearly what that thing was. Its entire body resembled a giant worm with 8 arms clinging to the stone tomb. But the worm's head was a human head with sharp teeth and a dry, ulcerated face full of small holes. From those holes, they could clearly see the blood-red baby worms wriggling. They made chirping sounds as if they were excited and happy because they were about to be fed. My offering, I am very satisfied. Come here with your mother. Its voice was horrifyingly horrifying. The thing in front of them was no longer an ordinary demon, but had become an ancient king. It was certain that before she died, that would use her own body to practice ancient medicine. After more than 100 years, relying on the worms to feed on the flesh and blood of the dead to grow, it also became stronger, transforming into its current form. Just eating the flesh and blood of dead people was not enough. It wanted to be stronger. It wanted fresher things. Fong and the other 4 people were scared to death by the ghost and insect in front of them, falling to the ground, their whole bodies trembling and unable to move, only themselves walking towards the ancient king like puppets. The ancient king stretched out one of its sharp hands towards he, and immediately his legs twisted and fell to his knees. Fong and the others could hear the sound of bones being broken. He raised his head and let out a cracking sound, his mouth opened wide as if it was about to tear apart. Something was slowly moving from within his throat and slowly crawling out toward his mouth that it was a slimy goo worm. It had no hair, nor was it red, but was milky white, about the size of a thumb, and as fat as a queen termite. That thing was the goo mother that had been released into Huang's body. While the goo king was extremely satisfied and wanted to take the goo mother back, suddenly a hand as quick as lightning snatched the goo mother from its hand. Master Hai Su was still wearing the traditional costume of a Miao man, and without hesitation, crushed the thing that was wriggling in his hand. He had already drawn a talisman in his palm. The ancient mother could not resist and was crushed. It oozed out a foul-smelling black blood. The ancient king let out a miserable and resentful cry. It used its 8 ears to crawl quickly on the ground and then rushed towards the second teacher. The second teacher was afraid and pulled out a sword from behind his back. The sword was made from white buffalo bone and was soaked in the second teacher's blood, so it had great lethality against evil spirits. The second teacher swung the sword and cut off one of its arms, causing it to cry out in pain. Its other arm was stabbed into the second teacher's shoulder, blood immediately spurting out. But that hand of his was immediately corroded. He pulled his hand back, turned his head as if he wanted to hide in the stone. As soon as he crawled to the stone, he screamed as if he was being burned by fire. Because Fong and his friends, while he was fighting with the second teacher, had stuck a talisman on the stone tomb. There was no way to run away, and he was injured by the talisman and the second teacher's blood. Knowing that the second master was not easy to deal with, it changed its strategy and quickly rushed towards Vi, who was hiding in a corner, hugging Hoa, who had passed out. Vi was grabbed by the leg and dragged away by its terrifying hand. It wanted to run into the forest. The ancient king thought that Vi was just a weakling. It opened its mouth wide with sharp teeth, intending to bite off Vi's head, when suddenly the head on the body became twisted. Black blood gushed out from its mouth. In less than half a minute, its entire body collapsed to the ground. Lying on its back, its 7 ears raised up to the sky. Under its throat was a small knife. The blade pierced through its throat and stabbed straight into its mouth. The trembling Vi people were helped up by the second master. "Well done, daughter." The teacher looked at Vi with the same eyes as before going up the mountain. Knowing that they would most likely become the target of the ancient king's attack, the second teacher gave each of them a talisman and a knife soaked in his blood. He also told them that the throat was the ancient king's fatal weakness. If they had the chance, stab them there. Because the second teacher's blood was something that all ghosts and demons feared, he was sure to be able to harm the ancient king. Last night, Master Hai cut his ear and extracted a lot of blood to draw talismans and soak knives and swords. If today these young people were not brave enough to help him, he would not have been able to deal with that monster. He might even have lost his life here. Master Hai took out a blue powder from his pocket. It is ground from the bark of the wormwood tree, which is often used by shamans to feed wormwood. This tree is special in that when it is alive, it can feed wormwood, but when it dies, its powder can corrode and destroy wormwood. The mother plant and the king plant are both dead. Naturally, the wormwood that is sown in the villagers will riot. If not suppressed and destroyed in time, they will frantically devour the container, tearing flesh and crawling out. According to the second master's instructions, when the worms inside the body began to manifest, The villagers immediately burned the charm that the second master gave them and drank it. Less than 5 minutes later, the villages were filled with painful screams. From old to young, everyone was rolling on the ground. Their bodies were in ruins. Their faces were distorted. They started to vomit, and what came out was black blood, mixed with countless red worms and white worm eggs. By the time all the worms were vomited out, everyone felt like they had lost half their lives. However, they hugged each other, crying and laughing at the same time. Finally, we're finally alive. Son, we're alive. Mr. Kobang hugged his wife and son and cried loudly. After more than 100 years, the curse of the clan was finally lifted. They and their descendants could live as humans, freely roaming around without being bound by invisible chains in this village. The shaman and Fong's group left, and the whole village saw them off with great gratitude. Sister, I will definitely study well in the future and go to the city. I want to become an excellent person like you two. Okay, you guys wait for me in the city. Seely looked at Vi and then at the others and firmly made a promise. As for Hoa, after returning to the city, thanks to the two teachers' treatment, she was able to wake up. Only thing is, Hoa did not remember anything that happened on that trip. Fong and his friends did not mention it either. Speaking of the teacher, after the battle in Kolang village, everyone thought that the teacher was a profound practitioner and was fine. But in fact, in that battle, the teacher was scratched by the king's neck and injured, and every day the teacher had to give Hoa his blood to drink. Because the ancient mother had laid eggs in Hoa's body, if she was not completely destroyed, a new ancient mother would be born. Over time, the second master's health gradually deteriorated, and he died in less than 3 months. The second master was afraid that he would do good deeds all his life, but would be alone without children. So the king took care of the teacher's funeral and asked for permission to invite the teacher's spirit back home to worship. When the people in Kolang village heard the news, they made a clay statue of the teacher Haisu and brought it into the family temple to worship. On that day, they burned incense for the teacher's soul as a thank you for what he had done for Kolang village. Dear listeners, you have just finished listening to the short story Lac Veo Ban Kui, Lost in the Ghost Village, a composition by Miss New. Goodbye and have a good night, everyone.